What's up, everybody? Straw Hats Are Cool here, and we are back again with Market Watch. We've got quite a bit to talk about this week. I think there's been quite a few fairly unexpected buyouts as a result of some tournament results, and I think some of it is partly just due to the fact that it is currently December 23rd at the time of this recording, so a couple days before Christmas if you are someone who celebrates. And I do think that people buying their Christmas gifts and whatnot is definitely impacting some sales as well. So don't want to ramble too much before we get into today's video, but as always, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who is subscribing to the channel and supporting me throughout all of this. I've recently started uploading some sim gameplay content again. Appreciate everyone who is stopping by to check that out. If you haven't already, do consider joining the Discord. We have a pretty good time in there talking about the market, just the game in general. And we're also doing giveaways every single week throughout the month of December. So we've already given away a starter deck 6, a starter deck 7, and currently we are giving away a starter deck 1. And then next week we will be giving away a starter deck 2 as well. So if you would like to have a chance at winning those, be sure to join the Discord. There will be a link down in the video description. As well, if you see anything in the video that catches your eye, maybe you want to pick something up for yourself, do consider using my TCG player affiliate link, which will also be included in the video description down below. You can use that link and a small percentage of your purchase will go towards supporting me in the channel, everything we're doing here. So you would use that, does mean a lot. Every little bit helps. Trying to save up a little bit extra money for some new equipment, and I want to start trying to stream some locals and whatnot. So I've got some pretty fun stuff I want to try and do going into 2024. But with that, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Starting things off as always with our manga rares, we've got Shanks, which is now sitting at $2,000 there, just about. Very substantial amount of money for one card, and there's one that sold sold around 1,500. That was a BGS 9.5, and then this one was not. So you know, I think that's just a completely ungraded raw one that sold at $2,000, which is a little bit absurd. Don't think I'll ever be getting my hands on this card, unfortunately. That's all I have to say about that. I'm really just kind of at a loss with these mangas right now. As we get into this, you're going to see that things are a little bit wild. Personally, I wouldn't buy one of these, but if you've got the money to do so and you're a hardcore collector, I mean, I guess this is kind of where we're at. Wish I would have picked one of these up when they were around, like, I think they got as low as $500-600. I know one of my friends got one from someone at an event for $500 at one point, which is pretty sick for him. So yeah, Manga Shanks is just only going up from here. There are, however, not very many listings, so that is something to keep in mind if you are looking to pick up a copy of this card. Next up, we've got Ace. We've got a lightly played copy at $1,000. And I do just want to say, you know, after reading, I try and read every comment. Some people were saying last week, generally with TCG Player, you should be a little skeptical of buying a card of this like price range in general, just because of how the TCG Player like conditioning scale works. You could get a near mint card and it could have some defects on it. So just something to keep in mind if you are considering picking up one of these cards off of TCG Player. So lightly played at $1,000, and up from there, if you want a verified near mint, it's closer to $1,200. One did sell at $1,200. Well, just shy of $1,200. I'm sure it was $1,200 after tax. Had one sell at $900, and then a couple more sales around that $1,200 price range as well. So it seems to be about the going price. If you're looking to get a verified seller, we're looking around $1,200. Might see one pop up a little lower, but do be skeptical of those if you're buying from a seller that is not verified. So just something to keep in mind there. Next up, we've got Soga King. We've got a lightly played at 520. Not a lot of change here. We've got a near mint from a verified seller at 550. Not as many sales with this one, though. We have seen a couple sales a little cheaper than what they're going for right now. But really, we're looking around that $500 range, starting to push 600. But if you're patient, I'm sure you can find one around 500. Somewhere between 500 and 600 seems to be the going price for this one. Next up, we've got Sabo. This one is, I want to say this one's up quite a bit. We're just shy of $600 now, and they are selling. We've got one more listing under 600, and then after that, we're looking at right around $650, and we've got quite a few listings in that price range. So Manga Sabo, if you're looking to pick up one of these, around $600, maybe a little more. I would expect this one's gonna sell pretty quick, as it is quite a bit cheaper than the others, more in line with where they've been selling. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone snags this up pretty quick. So for our sets 1 through 4 mangas in general, we're still seeing increases in the prices on those. Only one which has been pretty stagnant is Soga King, though it does seem like we're right on the cusp of another price jump for this one as well. But specifically with Shanks in particular, this one just keeps going up and up and up. The Ace has been more stable, not pretty stable I wouldn't say, but more stable around 1,000, between $1,000 and $1,200. Soga King's been pretty stable at 500, and then I think Sabo is seeing quite a bit of an increase relative where it has been. I feel like it's been floating around the 400-500, kind of following Soga King but being right behind, and now Sabo has kind of passed that Soga King in price. So now moving on to our set 5 stuff, and this is where things start to get a little more interesting. We do have our Eustace Captain Kidd, and if I recall, this one was around 600, between 600 and 700 last week, and now we're looking at about $800, a little more. Only one sale around the $800 price range, and again, I will say, I think some stores have already gotten their second shipments, and they were very, very small for product, but from what I can hear, there are a couple more waves which should be coming out early next year. So I would still say kind of hold off on this one, watch the price, and see where things go from there. I do think right now, especially being right around Christmas and all that, the prices are a little bit inflated. You know, December is just one of those big spending months for a lot of people, so might be splurging a little bit and picking up some of these cards a little bit early, just out of fear of the prices going up, which definitely could be the case. But personally, I don't think this card should be more than, say, Sabo or Soga King, or Sabo or Soga King, really. I would say I would expect Eustace to be right in line with Sabo personally, but maybe that's just me. And then for Law, this one did have kind of a buyout. Nothing is selling over $1,000 as far as I'm aware. It does not look to be the case, but they did get bought out, and now the cheapest listing we're looking at for Law is $1,500, which is like more than double, I think, where it was at last week. I will say, of the three, in terms of playability, now I know a lot of people aren't picking these up to play them in their decks, but there are some, specifically I think with Kid. But for Law as well, I think this is the least playable card, really only played in Red Purple Law. And really what this card has going for it is that it's Law, which is a very popular character. But with that said, honestly, at tops, I would say Law should probably end up more in line with where Ace is at now. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually ends up a little lower, because really there should be a lot more of these out there than Ace, I would think. Though I'm not exactly sure how the math works out, being that there are 3 manga rares in this set. Maybe that just drops the the rate of this card down a little bit, so it is more in line with Ace, but ultimately I'd expect this one to, you know, settle more around 1,000 at the very most. Personally, I think it should be a little lower than that though, but honestly the prices on mangas have just been kind of insane, so I totally would not be surprised if I'm completely wrong. These are just kind of my thoughts and feelings about where things are at. And then Monkey D. Luffy's just going crazy. The manga on this one is absolutely absurd. We did have one sell moderately played for 1,800. Kind of curious. I want to look at what the defects on this one were. So it's a moderately played copy. Looks like it's got some damage on the corners a little bit. Photo description. I shouldn't be messing around too much looking at this. I'm just curious. But yeah, Luffy's gone kind of wild. Not a lot of sales since they've exceeded $2,000. Actually haven't been any sales, it looks like, since exceeding $2,000. And the only ones that aren't selling are ones that have been right on that $2,000 mark. Or there was one right around there, but really it seems like the price people are willing to pay kind of caps at $2,000. So definitely wouldn't pick one of these up now, as that just kind of gives sellers the thought that people are willing to pay this price for the card. If you wait, I'm sure it'll come back down, but regardless of whether it comes back down or not, price is a little bit absurd on the Monkey D. Luffy. And it, like I said last week, it makes sense that this one's the most expensive. It's Monkey D. Luffy. He's the protagonist of the series. So this is definitely going to be the chase card for most people. So that's it for the 3 new mangas. We're going to finish things off with our Oda Sig Luffy. I know it's not a manga, but I feel like it deserves to be included in here. It's just kind of, these are our top end chase cards for the One Piece trading card game. So it is at $2,300 right now. And again, it seems like people are really only willing to pay somewhere around $2,000. Anything exceeding that seems like it is not selling, at least right now. So you've got a, what is up with this? This is a lightly played copy there. But for a near mint, we're looking at $2,300, and they don't seem to be selling at that price point. We had one sell today at $1,900, and a one 3 days before that at around $1,800. But ultimately, the chase cards from OP05 are a little bit absurdly priced right now, and I'm very curious to see if the prices continue to stay here or if they're going to come back down. It's definitely something I'm curious to see moving forward, especially into next year. I did just refresh my page here, and we do have another listing now at right around $2,000. So if we'll see if that one ends up selling just a little more than the one that sold today. But yeah, your 2 Luffys are definitely the biggest hits for the set, but Law is kind of catching up, and Eustace is the least expensive, but you know, it is what it is. It's still a manga rare, which is very cool. So that is it for our mangas. We're going to go ahead now and move on to OP01. I'm going to try and move through these a little bit more quickly. So as far as leader goes, Law is kind of where it has been, right around the 400. Zoro, kind of same deal. Not a lot of change on our leaders, with the exception of the red-green Monkey D. Luffy. They are not selling at this price, but a couple have sold this week, and they were for $150 and $170 within that price range. And it seems they were bought out, as now the cheapest listing is $220, and that's with $5 shipping, so really about $225. So as we get into this video, and you'll see this as we get towards the end, I think in general what I'm noticing is that the collector market for Monkey D. Luffy cards is kind of popping off right now. And You'll see why I think and feel that way a little more as we get into the video, but that's just kind of what I'm noticing. So I think collectors, you know, like I said with the manga Gear 5, he's our protagonist. Obviously these cards are going to be a little bit more expensive than any other character just because it's Luffy. So with that said, yeah, that's it for our leaders. Not a lot of change, but your Monkey D Luffy is up. They're not selling at that price though, so be patient, and if you're looking to pick up one of these, hopefully they'll come back down a little bit. I do believe yesterday it looked like the cheapest one was 300, so they're already coming down from there. Just continue to be patient and wait for things to settle down a little bit. For our sealed boxes of Romance Dawn, they are up a little bit from last week. I want to say they're up around $10 or $15 maybe. Actually, I think they're about the same. I think the one last week had $15 shipping on it, so not a lot of change with our Romance Dawn booster boxes. And like I said every week since I've started covering the sealed stuff as well, really, if you're looking to pick one of these up, definitely keep it sealed. Don't open these boxes unless you've got x-ray vision and can tell if there's a manga Shanks in these boxes. There's no point in opening them up because you're not going to be making your money back most of the time. I mean, there are some very niche cases where maybe you'll make your money back. You pull a leader Law and Nami as your hits, you know, those types of situations. And I know there are some rares and whatnot which are also pretty expensive, but definitely don't buy these boxes with the intention of opening them and flipping for a profit. Definitely not what you should be doing. But if you're a sealed collector, this is the price you're looking to pay, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go up from here. So, you know, take that how you will. I'm not a sealed collector, so I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on it. But moving on, we already talked about our leaders, so yeah, I just left that page open. My bad. All right, so now moving on to cards from the set. Radical Beam's about $5 right now. A little bit absurd, but it's back at 4 copies, and people want this card. I definitely need to go through and grab all my bulk ones because I'm still sitting on probably like 20 of these, and I should probably get rid of those now while the getting's good. And if you've got some extra copies lying around, I definitely recommend you do the same. Oh, next up we've got Shanks from Romance Dawn. Just bringing this one up because kind of towards the end of the OP04 format when we got ST10, this card did get as high as, I want to say, $30, just because it was one of the best cards that we currently had in the game that you could play in Red Purple Luffy. But since set 5 is released, this card has dropped back down and is now under $20 again. So if it's something you're looking to pick up for your collection, definitely the time to do that. I feel like with these set 1 cards, as the game goes on and as time passes, they're only going up in price. Just from a collector's standpoint, personally, I don't really think this card will be seeing a whole lot of play moving forward. But I'm open to being wrong. I like this card. It's got very nice art for a generic secret rare. So yeah. Moving on, we've got Denjiro. I'm only bringing Denjiro up because last week we did talk about how Kinemon went up, and that was a result of the EB01 leader spoilers being officially confirmed, and we did get an Odin leader. Seems not too bad, and honestly I think I'm going to make a video going over those just because I really like talking about this card game. But Denjiro is a 5/7 with Dawn 1 when attacking. It only works with the Odin leader. You can set up to 2 Dawn as active. Now with the new Odin leader that was spoiled, all Wano characters that don't have counter have 1k counter, and additionally with that leader you do want to have a 5-cost character on the board. So this is now like a vanilla statted body with a pretty solid effect in that deck, so could end up being good, but you know, that's very speculative, so take that with a grain of salt, you know. But it has gone up in price a little bit already. It's been a very, very cheap card, but since then now we're looking at about $1, so I just thought I'd bring that up. Same thing with Katsuki Momonosuke. I feel like this one may just continue to go up as well. I believe it sees play in green yellow Yamato, and that deck has been pretty strong, though I will say I don't think it's been as impressive as people thought it would be, and that just goes to show you how powerful some of the other new leaders from OP06 are. So might make a video talking about that as well. I think that would be kind of a pretty interesting one for discussion. But yeah, Momonosuke is around $2. And now I'm kind of sad that I have to bring this card up again, because I feel like I bring it up every week and I say just about the same thing. But last week this card was like, what, $30 I want to say, 35 maybe, and now we're back up to $50 with $5 shipping and only 12 listings left. So I think this probably is because of the Odin leader spoilers. Again, you want to have a 5-cost character on the field for that leader to get its full effect. But like, this card's still bad. This card is still bad. Now there was I want to say it was a Hiyori card that was also spoiled. It's a rare, and essentially it's a 4-cost character that you can trash to play a 5-cost Wano and draw a card. So you, in like a deck like Kinemon, you could play this on turn 2 going first, because you could cheat out the Hiyori to cheat out the Yamato. But you'd have to have all that in your hand, and then it's still probably just getting removed next turn, because if you're against really like any deck, I mean, there are just ways to remove it, and if people aren't playing the ways to remove it, they will adapt and play the ways to remove it, because just about every deck in the game has some way of removing this card. So I think that this Yamato stuff is just pure copium. This card, you know, it could end up being dominant in a topping list as a staple. And if that's the case, I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm going to die on this hill. This card's bad. I don't know why it keeps like going up, and then like it went up for green yellow Yamato deck, and then it didn't see any play in that deck, so it dropped back down, and now we've got Odin leader coming, and the price on this card is going back up again because people are still coping on this card. I don't know why. This card's bad. If you have copies, personally, I would sell them, but that's just me. I'm probably getting a little too heated about this, but that's just my thoughts. Kinemon has gone up again, kind of got bought out again. They're not selling at this price. One did sell today though for $25, so if you are looking to pick up copies of this card, just keep your eye out for some cheaper listings like this one that sold today. Again, this is just because of the hype for the new red-green Odin leader. Now, I want to bring up Dracula Mihawk, both the alternate and the SR. They're down a lot from where they were. There was a point in time where this was what, just shy of $30, so about half of where it was at its peak. And the alternate art is it's been a lot more stable, not a lot of change on this one. But I did want to bring it up because I think this card is going to start seeing more play in Sakazuki. So if you have intention to play Sakazuki and don't have this card, I would pick up 2 copies just to have them. I've been testing out 2 in my list, and I think it's pretty good. And from what I can see, more and more players are starting to kind of get on board with playing more big bodies in the Sakazuki deck. So if you don't have these, I would recommend picking up 2 copies. And if you don't have the alts and are into maxing your decks, maybe pick up a couple copies as well, because I can see a Sakazuki list that is running Mihawk topping and these cards going back up in price. But that's it for OP01, so we're going to now jump into OP02. Already at 25 minutes, so I'm going to try and speed things up a little bit. I know I said that for OP01, but here we are. So starting things off with our leaders, nothing. Let me refresh. I feel like Ivankov actually went up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, this looks more correct. Not a lot of change. Ivankov went back up to $50 and Zephyr's a little under now, but other than that, everything's where it has been. Not a lot to speak of here, other than Newgate might be just slightly cheaper than where it was at last week. But that is it for our leaders. Not a lot of change there. Next up, our sealed Paramount War. I can't remember exactly where prices were at last week, so I don't know if this is like more or less than where it was at last week. I guess we could look at the sales. It does look to be up quite a bit, actually. Well, I don't know. It seems like it's up a little bit from where it was at last week. And again, buy these and keep them sealed if you're into collecting sealed. Hold on to them and maybe try and flip for a profit later down the road, but definitely don't buy these and open these products. Yeah. Next up, I've got all of these like impel down cards pulled up. And reason being is that we did get some cards spoiled from EB01, and they are geared at supporting the impel down archetype. And honestly, given how the things with Odin went, I'm a little surprised that the Ivankov alternate art is still kind of only around $20. It's a little higher than where it was, but it's been around this price point for quite some time now. And I figured because we got a blue impel down card that can be played off of this and actually works very well with it, that there would be more of a price increase there. But I guess I don't know. Deck probably still won't be good, and I think people are aware of that. But I'm still bringing up all of these blue impel down cards because depending on what else gets spoiled, the blue impel down stuff could be good. I think there's only been one blue impel down card revealed. It's an Inazuma, and honestly, I think the card is not too bad. Draw some cards, and that's always good. But depending on what else we get, the blue impel down side of things could be pretty good. Don't think we've seen any cards spoiled for the purple side of impel down things, but I do still want to bring up Little Sadie because with the Hannibal leader, I do think this is one of the better cards you can play in that deck, because you can play your Jailer Beast a little cheaper and then bounce this back to your hand, so you still got the 2k counter, and then ramp is what the leader effect allows you to do. So just something to keep in mind there. This is one that maybe we get some new Jailer Beast revealed for EB01, and this could definitely be a card that goes up in price. Ice Age is $1.50 right now, way up from where it was, and sees play in Sakazuki usually as a 1 or 2 of, but definitely seeing a price increase there. And depending on what the results look like for events, as we start getting more events for the OP05 format, if people are playing more and more copies of this card, definitely could see it go up from here as well. Porcelino, now I believe when we looked at this one last week, it was actually starting to settle down a little bit. It was around $28, $29, and saying settling down when it was still that high for a regular SR is a little bit absurd, but we're back up at just shy of $40 now, which is even more absurd. And unfortunately, I don't think this problem is going to be addressed before it's I don't think it's going to be addressed while it's relevant. If Bandai addresses this and gives this card some form of a reprint, it'll probably be after this card has kind of fallen out of relevance, at least to some degree. I think this is just a pretty good card, so I'm sure it'll still see some play, but probably not to the degree that it will be throughout the duration of the OP05 format, which is a bit unfortunate, because if we've got new players who are looking to get into the game and really want to build Sakazuki, this is pretty daunting and is not good for the health of the game. Same dealio with the alt art, but you know, alt arts being expensive, I'm like more okay with, because you know they're alternate arts, they're rare, they're supposed to be expensive, and like kind of flex, I guess. But when your regular cards are like more than most alternate arts in the game, that is a bit of a problem. I also want to bring up 10 drop Kuzan because it is down quite a bit. It was around $40, and I've been seeing more lists trying this out, and I can guarantee you that if a list tops and is running this Kuzan, the price on this card is going to go to the moon again. Not really to the moon, but I'd see it going back up to around $40 pretty quickly following that. So just something else to keep in mind there. But that's it for OP02. Got through that pretty quickly. Really, I had quite a few cards pulled up, but mostly just kind of more speculative on like the impel down stuff specifically, and then just black cards being absurdly priced. So that's it for OP02. We're going to jump into OP03, starting off with our leaders. And for the most part, everything's about where it was last week, except Katakuri is going a little crazy. Only got 9 listings left, and the cheapest one being $184 with 99 shipping. We've got 1, 2, 3 around that price range, and then after that, we're looking at 220 and upwards from there. So there have been some sales today, but they were around 170, so we're a little bit higher than that. And honestly, this leader is still very, very good this set. I definitely think it's one of the best leaders in the current format, which I kind of hate because I'm tired of playing against this leader, and 10 cost Big Mom, but it is what it is. I might be falling to the dark side, and I may have picked up the rest of the alts to finish out my set because I like playing my Dex Max Rarity because I'm a degenerate and my wallet hates me. But you know, is what it is. Katakuri's getting expensive. On to sealed. Now, from the sealed stuff we looked at this last week, I think this one saw the biggest increase. I want to say this one was around 160, maybe 170, and now we're looking at $190. As you can see here by our 3-month graph, it's going up pretty steadily. And yeah, it does look like last week they were around 150, and now we're looking at 190, which is a bit absurd. But just like I said with the other sealed products, I would probably just, you know, if you buy these, keep these sealed. With how yellow prices are right now, you probably have the best chance of flipping these for a profit, but definitely still a gamble and not one I would be willing to take. You know, if you got like a Kata leader and I don't know, like the wanted Luffy, yeah, you're making a little bit of a profit there, and then anything extra in there, but definitely not a chance I'd be willing to take. If you're buying sealed, I'd keep sealed. If you bought any of these last week though, I bet you're feeling pretty good because we're already seeing a pretty noticeable increase in price on that one. So moving on to cards now from the main set. Doflamingo Wanted poster. I'm bringing this one up because I brought it up a few weeks ago and then it got bought out shortly after that. And now things are finally starting to settle back down a little bit, which is good to see. There was no reason for this card to be like $60, which is where I believe it was at one point. Yeah, around $60 was a little bit absurd. No reason for this card to be at that price point. I do think there was a Corazon list that did okay in a regional last week, and it was running this card because it's searchable off the Baby 5, running like a Doflamingo package. But yeah, definitely it didn't like top or anything. I just think it did okay, maybe like 6.3 or something, but I'm not too sure. Point being, I'm glad to see this card come back down. If you're a collector, I'd say this is buying price to pick it up at, because over time it probably will go back up again. Next up, we've got Polly. And Polly, there hasn't been a huge price increase, but it is up about $5, and you can see that from our sales, which have happened earlier today. Been around $25, and we're looking at 30 now. Very good card in the mono purple Luffy deck, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if purple Luffy ends up topping quite a few events, maybe even nationals. Would not be surprised to see that. I've got a friend I test with quite often, and he's pretty high on the Luffy deck, and it definitely seems to do pretty well into the yellow decks, as well as having a winnable matchup against Sakazuki. I'd say it's pretty 50-50 honestly from what I can tell, but definitely think this is a staple card for one of the best decks in the format. So definitely would not be surprised if this one continues to go up just a little bit more, but we're already starting to see a slight price increase and only 19 listings left on that one. Gum Gum Ream is actually the most expensive rare from the set now. It's $2.35 with 99-cent shipping, which I do find a little surprising because we do have cards like Brand New in the set, which are seeing, I would say, quite a bit more play. But actually, now that I'm looking at it, they're about the same price. That makes a little more sense. I want to say when I pulled it up, it was like $1.80, but I guess maybe those sold after I refreshed the page. But yeah, both Brand New and Gum Gum Jet Gatling are, I guess, your most expensive rares. Are almost identical in price. Though I will say with the Jet Gatling, we've only got one listing left before we're at $3.20. For Brand New, we've got quite a few more listings at that $2.50 price point. So if you got extra Gum Gum Jet Gatlings, probably a good time to try and flip some of those for a little profit. Set 3 is definitely the one I opened the least of overall. I think I opened like 12 boxes, just one case for this one, whereas with 02 and 01 and 04 and 05 I opened a lot more than that. But yeah, Jet Gatling and Brand New are getting to be fairly expensive for just a rare, so I wanted to bring that up just in case you're sitting on a lot of these cards in your bulk. Might be time to pull those out and try and sell them. Next up is Cracker. Now, Cracker's actually down a little bit from where it's been this week, but up from where it was when we covered it last week. And you can see that right here. They've been selling at $13, $14. We've got one listing here at $11, and then we're right back up to about $13. So Cracker kind of popping off, and I would say it makes sense because this card is seeing a lot of play in both Katakuri and NL this set. Maybe less play in NL than I was expecting though, because it seems like most builds are geared more towards the Sky Island package, and I know kind of at the beginning of the format going into things there was kind of a split on that, people kind of debating whether the Pig Bomb package or the Sky Island package was a little better. I'm still not sure. I haven't played the deck a whole lot. The deck's super obnoxious and I don't really want to play it, but if I end up deciding it is the best play for Nationals, that's probably what I'm going to end up playing. But yeah, Cracker kind of just going up and up and up, down. I mean, we've got one listing, which is a little bit cheaper, and then we're right back up. $13 seems to be pretty stable for right now. Alternate art on most of the yellow stuff is about the same it was last week, though our secret rare Katakuri, both the regular and alternate art, are up quite a bit. I want to say the regular was around $60 some last week, and now we're looking at $70 some this week. And then for alternate art, we're back up over $100. For a near mint copy, we're looking at $120, which is a bit absurd. But this card sees play in NL as like a lot of times I want to say a 4 of, 3, between a 2 and a 4 of, depending on how you build your deck. And it also sees play in Katakuri, so makes sense. It's a secret rare, it's an alternate art, and Katakuri is also a pretty popular character in the series, so not surprised to see the card popping off like this in price. But hopefully if you were looking to pick these up, you already did so, because probably for the remainder of this format, this card is going to be pretty expensive. That's it for OP03 though, so now we're going to jump on to OP04. Starting off with our leaders, not a lot of change, and honestly, every week we look at this, there isn't a lot of change, and if there is a change, it's just that the prices are starting to go down a little bit. I feel like over time, they'll go back up, or they'll start to go up, but you know, it's kind of hard to say. These leaders are definitely not anywhere near as playable as most of the other leaders from previous sets. I feel like there really weren't any really good leaders in this set. I would still argue that Queen is the best one in this format, so I'm a little surprised it's as low as it is. I definitely think it can perform, but definitely has a hard time against some decks. I was playing this with my buddy and he was on Floofy and he kind of wrecked me, so definitely has some bad matchups, but I also think it has some good matchups. Next up, Sealed or OP04. I think it's up like $5. If you want to buy these and open them, go for it. But with how prices of singles in the set are, probably still not worth it. This set definitely has the least value overall within it. But yeah, so not a lot of change on our sealed price. Moving on, I want to talk about Doflamingo, the regular, for a near mint copy from a verified seller, about $250. But I want to bring this up because the alternate art has been bought out. It's been bought out, and the reason it was bought out was because someone over in the East, I believe, won an event with Green Black Perona. That's a leader from OP06, if you weren't aware, and they were running kind of a Doflamingo sub package, so the it was a very small pool of Doflamingo cards, but they were running the new Searcher and this 10-drop Doflamingo as 4-ofs, and because that deck won, people have bought it out. So I'm glad I own 4 copies of this card. And if you are someone who invested in these, I know we kind of talked about on the channel towards the beginning of Market Watch, I said, you know, this card's pretty good and I could still see it going up a little more once we get the Uta leader, as this was kind of like the top end boss monster of choice in that deck, despite the fact that you can't grab it off any of your searches. You just kind of hope it ends up in your hand, and it's pretty good. So yeah, Doflamingo bought out. SR is probably going to start to go up as well, but still plenty of listings on this one right now. Only 5 on the Doflamingo, and they're up quite a bit from where they were. But do keep in mind they are currently really not selling at this price. We had a couple sell 24-ish, but not a lot more than that, so definitely something to keep in mind there. Next up, I kind of consider this a promo, but on TCG Player they list it as a set 4 card, and that is the Dash Pack Shirahoshi. This is one I brought up a couple times and said, hey, you know, I would buy this card. It sees a lot of play in yellow this set, sees a lot of play in yellow next set. It's just kind of a staple for yellow, and I don't see any reason why this variant is so much cheaper than the pre-release variant when this one looks so much better. And people finally caught on, and this card has now kind of been, I don't want to say it was bought out, but the price has just gone up pretty considerably. You can see here back towards the end of October, beginning of November, we're at $5. Now, towards the end of December, we're at nearly $20, which is a bit absurd. I've got an extra copy of this card that I'm looking to get rid of now, though, so that's nice for me, I guess. But hopefully, you've been a viewer of the channel for some time now, and we're able to get the heads up on this beforehand and grab your copies before they went up in price, because if you're looking to bling out your yellow, unfortunately this one is looking to be a little more expensive now, and I expect it to be pretty stable at this price. I don't see it going much lower than this. Maybe it'll stabilize around $15 though. We'll just have to see. Capone up just a little bit from where it was last week, only a couple dollars. Might even be like the exact same price. I can't remember exactly. I think it's up just a little bit. And again, yellow is very, very good this set. Definitely seeming to be one of the decks that can keep up with Sakazuki. So it makes sense that probably the best 2K, I don't want to say the best 2K in the game. I feel like Otama can kind of compete for that title as well. But one of the best 2K counters in the game got an alt art. Definitely makes sense that this one's going up in price. The regular SR Sanji has gone up tremendously. It's doubled in price in the last week or so. I can't remember where it was at last week, but I know it's been around $4 or $5 and slowly creeping up. But now we're looking at about $10 for this card. Again, it's a staple in the yellow decks, both whether you play Katakuri or NL. This card is a staple, usually a 4 of. So it makes sense that the price is going up. The alternate art's going up a little bit as well. I want to say this is more similar to where it was last week, but do keep in mind that this has $5 shipping. So really, we're looking at about $50 for this card. And there are only 2 listings at that price, and those are from non-verified sellers. Then we've got a lightly played at $55, and then after that, we're looking at about $60 for this card, which is kind of crazy. So hopefully, again, you pick these up earlier. I think they hit a low around $30, and now they're going back up. And honestly, I was surprised they ever got as low as $30. Yellow's been a very popular color, and this was a 4 of last set in yellow, and still a 4 of this set, but I guess now there are 2 decks that are playing this card at 4. Yamato, this one, it's gone up and down and settled now around $6. The alternate art, however, is going up in price. It's about $65 now. This one, the Yamato, does not see play, at least as far as I'm aware, in Katakuri very much. But it does see a lot of play in NL. This is a 4 of an NL. And if you're playing Queen, it'll also see play in that deck. But really, this card is kind of being controlled by how successful NL's been. I'm a little surprised that, given that it won the regional, and I believe it also won Eggman's box event as well. So as far as tournaments go for OP05 and what we have to work with right now in the West, NL's kind of been doing very, very well. So I'm a little surprised that this card is not a little bit more. Not sure what else to say there. I could see it going up more if NL continues to do well in the Western format, though. That is it for OP04, though. So we're going to jump into OP05 now. And I'm going to do things kind of similar to how I did them last week, just because there have been a lot of changes for OP05 singles this week. Now, we already talked about our mangas and our Oda Sig, so I'm just going to kind of skip over those. For sealed, things are kind of where they have been. Case is around $2,000 and a box is around $170, which is way more than I thought they'd be, and I really do hope they come back down just for the sake of new players and collectors alike. But with that, let's start talking now about the cards from the set. Starting off with Nami SP, we've seen a pretty huge increase in price. I picked up a copy last week, maybe a little more than a week ago now, from a guy from my locals, and I want to say, because we always do like 85% of whatever is on TCG Player when we sell, just because we don't have to deal with shipping and the percentage that TCG Player takes. But I believe I picked my copy up for $100 ish. It was like 115 on TCG Player, and now we're at $170. The Yamato SP is at $100. That's up. I believe it was about $60 last week. Our leaders are about the same as they were last week. Sakazuki leading the pack around 115. And then your Luffy and NL. Luffy about 100, NL a little less. But then our NL SP is up way more, like absurdly more. I picked up a copy for $50 kind of shortly after release. And I picked up a copy of Uta the day before they exploded in price for about 50. Maybe it was 60, but the SPs have all gone up quite a bit. Kaido's up to 50. Aluchi's about the same where it has been. Unfortunately, my boy just the least desirable SP from the set. Shortly followed by Kaido, which sucks because I pulled 3 copies of this card. If it was any of these 4, I'd be pretty happy right now, but yeah, he still looks cool, I guess. But yeah, the SPs have all seen huge increase in price, and I feel like they're gonna come back down, with the exception maybe of Nami, because if we look at the SPs from OP04, you know, we've got some popular characters in there like Law and Newgate, but those cards have all settled kind of around $50. Magellan, Law, Newgate, good cards, playable cards, they're around $50. Sakazuki's a little less, around 30. And then I can't remember, Boa's the most expensive at around 100 because waifu tax. So I don't see any reason why these ones would be so much more. Personally, I think these cards look way better than the SPs from set 4, so that may have something to do with it. These are gorgeous cards, great foiling, very, very nice texturing on them. Definitely cards you're going to want to have as a collector, which is why I picked up mine pretty quick, just because for cards like this, I definitely want to collect them. I'm probably more of a player than a collector, but One Piece is my favorite series of all time, so I do collect the cards as well. So SPs are up a lot. Betty Leader is up a little bit too, I think. Your Gear 5 alternate art's about the same as where it has been, same with Rebecca. So I think for your leaders, Betty's up, most things are about the same. Gear 5's about the same as where it was. Rebecca's about the same as where it was. Lucci is down. It's actually down about $10, so about 20% from where it was last week. And I want to say the same for Kid. I want to say Lucci was around 50 and maybe the same for Kid as well. They were both quite a bit more expensive last week. And I am a little surprised with Lucci, especially because I feel like Lucci competes with Rebecca for how much the cards are played. But again, I guess I need to take waifu tax into account. So this card is just always going to be more expensive than Lucci. But in addition to that, there are also just way more listings for Lucci, which I think is pretty interesting considering they're both 4-ofs in Sakazuki. I could see an argument for maybe dropping Lucci down to 3, but for the most part, most lists you look at are going to be running 4 copies of both of these cards. So I do find it a little interesting that this one's got so many more listings and is only about 2/3 the price of a Rebecca. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Same thing for the Eustace Captain Kid. I want to say last week, yeah, it looks like it was about $50 last week, and now we're about $36. Got $2 shipping on that one. So still quite a bit less than it was last week. So I definitely think personally I'm going to be picking up 2 more copies of this card. to finish out my playset, just because I like to have playsets of specifically the playable alternate arts, just in case I ever decide to pick those up. And like I said, I'm a fool and I like to play max rarity, or at least to a degree. I'm not playing like championship Borsalinos in my deck or anything like that, though I thought about it when I had 3 copies. Other than that, for the first page, our most expensive cards, the biggest changes are that Lucci Kid went down in price, and our big takeaways for increases are that all the SPs went up in price for the most part. I feel like Lucci is almost the same as where it was last week, so definitely the smallest change for Lucci. But overall, the SP saw pretty significant increase in price, some of them doubling, and then Lucci and Kid dropping in price a little bit. Betty is about the same as where it was last week. Your alternate art secret rare Kaido is up about $10, so almost 50% from where it was last week. It was at about $20, and honestly, it makes sense. I wish I would have picked mine up when they were 20 because I still wanted to pick up another copy or two, but it makes sense. The card does see play and I believe has seen some success in Sakazuki decks, and it's also just an alt art secret rare, popular character, great art. So I guess it was surprising that it was ever as low as it was, but it's settling down around $30 now. Zoro Juro is down. This one was about 35-ish last week. Now they're at 26. Just finished my playset on this one now that they're coming down in price. Eneru is up, I believe. I want to say it was around $18 last week, and now we're looking at 23. And Baby 5 is going up even more. Again, like I said when we talked about Doflamingo, this card was played in a green-black Perona deck, which won a big event over in the East yesterday, I think. And as a result, these cards got bought out because it seems like what people just do these days is when a deck does good over there, they just buy out the alts over here, hoping to later make a profit, I'm sure. So yeah, Baby 5 is up. Gidatsu about the same. Walla's down a little bit. Makes sense. I feel like this one was a little overpriced, though. In the East, the Three Brothers decks did just come out, and if the Sabo ends up being good and decides to run a Revolutionary Army package, I could see both Bello Betty and Koala going up in price. Your alternate art Luffy is about the same as where it was. All secret rare is about the same. The law is down a little bit. One of the cheaper alts from the set. I'm surprised that Mancherry is as cheap as it is played as a 2 of in most Sakazuki decks, but I mean, it is only a rare. It's an alternate art rare, and looking at cards like X-Drake and Gidatsu, Baby 5, those cards are generally just a little cheaper than the alternate art SRs, but still a little surprised with how low this one is and how many listings there are on it. Definitely thought this one would be a little bit higher. Alties, $14. Card's very mid. X-Drake around 10. I want to say that might be up a little bit from where it was. Sabo is down a little bit. I think that makes sense. I feel like these two almost flipped in price, and that makes sense because this card is playable in Queen at the very least, and this card is basically just not playable. Your secret rare Kaido has also gone up in price, so hopefully if you're like me and you pulled an absolute crap load of these, you can make a couple extra dollars now. Still not great. Would have much rather pulled a bunch of the Gear 5 Luffy, since those are worth a little bit more, but it is what it is. Pika, it's the worst. It's not the worst card in the set, but in terms of SRs, it absolutely is the worst card in the set, and it's the worst alternate art in the set. So it makes sense that it is just a little over $5. Now, let's talk about regular SRs for a minute. Kid is still the most expensive one, which I'm a little surprised by. I thought it would be Rebecca. So a little surprised that Kid is more. It's not much more, to be fair. Only a little bit more than Rebecca. At about $8, but definitely down a lot from where it was last week. I feel like last week it was around $15. Rebecca was around 10 or 12, so we're down from there. Can't remember where Lucci was at, but $2. And then after that, everything is like super cheap. Porcelinas are cheap. All the rares are cheap. Not a lot to talk about there. So kind of I want to say that half of my predictions were right. Going into OP05, I said that box prices would drop because the set was printed a lot, and so I didn't think that sealed product was going to be as much of an issue as it is. I was wrong there. Now that I remember talking with some people in my Discord and some other Discords who were buying some pre-sale prices because they were worried that, you know, the cards, specifically like the Rebecca's, Lucci's, would stay expensive, if not get more expensive. But because of how much product is being opened, there are tons of these cards out there, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the prices continue to drop just a little bit more before kind of finally stabilizing and settling down. So quite a bit of changes for OP05. I guess it wasn't as much as I thought. Kaido's up, Baby 5's up, your SPs are up, regular SRs are down. Kid and Lucci are down. I guess those are kind of our big takeaways this week. So that is it for OP05. Let's close things out with our promo cards, starting things off with our Dawn cards. And our Straw Hat Dawns are still pretty expensive, with the majority of them being around $70. Got some cheaper ones like the Jimbei, Frankie, and Usopp, but you know, your Sanji, Chopper, Zoro, Robin, Luffy, Nami, average price on those is around $70. Yamato Dawn from the first anniversary event is pretty expensive. It's about $30, just shy of that. And they're selling. People want these Dawns. So I'm unsure with what I want to do with mine. I think I ended up with, I actually have them right here next to me. We've got 4 of them. And I'm unsure whether or not I want to sell extras or try and go for the playset. I'm probably not going for a playset. I'm not spending $26 on a Dawn card. So probably gonna be listing some of mine soon then. But not a lot of change for the Dawn cards. They're still very expensive, and hopefully as we get, I know they're giving these out in the treasure cups now, the prices start to come down a little bit. But 3 of these cards that are like the Dawn that are the most expensive are from the offline regional pack, and we're not, I mean, we did get some offline regionals announced. Signups are tomorrow if you're watching this before, if this gets uploaded before signups go live. The signups for regionals go up December 24th at noon EST. So yeah, Dawn are still expensive. Now, I'm only bringing this Yamato card up because, like I said when we talked about OP01 Yamato, people are really coping on Yamato as a character. I don't know, maybe they're just still mad she's not a Straw Hat and really need to like prove something by playing an all Yamato deck. I don't know. There's only 15 listings left, so it is kind of a card that is very susceptible to getting bought out. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Card's bad. Don't buy it unless maybe you're hoping to flip a profit. Okay, now this is the card I was talking about when I said I think the collector hype for Luffy is just kind of going to the moon for the One Piece trading card game. Now, granted, they're not selling at $100, but why did this get bought out? Like, no one's playing this card. I think it's a collector thing. I mean, Luffy, you know, he's the protagonist of the series. This card was only given out at super pre-release events, so it is, even though it was the participation prize, still was very hard to get into those events, and there really aren't a lot of these cards out there in the grand scheme of things. Same thing with the winner variant, which is very, very expensive. So I guess I'm not surprised that it's going up, but don't buy this. The most expensive one that sold was $50, and that one was sealed. So I don't know. Luffy cards are going kind of wild though. We saw the leader. We see this. We're gonna get into another Luffy card here in a minute. This is the Pirate Party promo for this set. My LGSs, I think only one of them got these though, so these might end up being harder to get than some of the previous ones, but it's only $9, and honestly, if you want these, I might get them now because there's a lot of Luffy hype and there's also a lot of Gear 5 hype, and that plays right into the next card we're going to talk about, which is the first anniversary tournament winner Luffy card. It's at $450. What are these? Oh, the Japanese ones. And there were listings selling at $500. Absolutely absurd. I thought they were a lot when they were selling at like $250, $300. But this just goes to show you how much the collector side of things for the card game market has increased over the last couple months. I think especially with OP05 out now, the collector market is exploding a little bit. So Luffy cards in general are just getting a little bit out of hand. Glad I won one of these is all I can say, because it's definitely one I want for my collection, have hanging on my wall alongside some of my mangas that I've managed to pull and whatnot. It's just some of my prize cards. I like to have them. Just kind of, you know, they're like trophies to me. So I do enjoy collecting the ones that I win at the very least. Next up is Brule, and boy howdy, I brought this card up a lot, but hopefully you bought them before now, because good lord. $90. Granted, they're not selling, but this card was around $50 towards in the early OP04 kind of meta. I want to say it was like around $50, and it dropped back down as we got towards the end of OP04. And now that yellow is everywhere again, and this card is seeing quite a bit of play in NL, card has exploded in price. Like I said, they're not selling at this price, but you know, you've got some selling at $60, $50. If you've got your copies of Brule, maybe you attended a store championship back in the beginning. This was from the very first store championship. Forgot you had one of these cards and you're not really attached to it. Definitely a good time to sell one of those. So if you've got some copies of Brule that you're not very attached to, now is definitely time to sell those. Event pack stuff continuing to go down. Jinbei and Bart both down from where they were last week by about $10. Everything else is pretty stable. Suru still being one of your more expensive cards though. For Judge stuff, not a lot of change. Queen is actually like weirdly inexpensive. The Judge one's $40, and when we check our starter deck ones, we'll have to double check, but I want to say it's like $38. So the fact that the Judge one is almost the same price as the starter deck one just goes to show you how inflated the prices are on the starter deck card. I don't even know if inflated is the right word. but those cards are a problem. And unfortunately, like I said, kind of with the Porcelinos, I don't think it's going to be addressed while it's relevant. I think it will get addressed, but after it's like, it won't be relevant once they address it. So kind of unfortunate, but maybe they'll work a miracle. I'd like to be wrong. Next up, we've got our winter cards. From the new set, Winter Kaido is the most expensive, followed by the Luffy. And Winter Tashigi is back way up. This one last week, I want to say, was down to about $20, $25. And now we're back up almost $50. So hope you picked up your Tashigis on the dip. If you were planning to pick these cards up now, because there are only 8 listings left and we're at about $50. Other than that, not a lot of change for winter stuff, except for Yamato, because like I said, these people in Yamato need to stop. This card is not good. It's just not. And why is it more than the Luffy? Luffy's a more popular character. This card looks better. It's more playable. What is happening? I really couldn't tell you. Now I will say, just as one more thing I'd like to mention, they did reveal a new Cavendish card, which looks like it could potentially be okay in Law, if Law is still a deck that's good when EBO1 releases. So if it is, Bonnie could go up in price again. Maybe the same thing for Brook. Both good cards in Law. So just something to keep in mind there. But other than that, not a lot of changes with winter stuff. Biggest change is the Tashigi and the Yamato. And for our sealed battle cards, the Sabo is actually starting to come down. It's now under $200. But these other cards, man, oh man. I hope that they like give these out at some other events, or maybe they do another sealed battle for set 5 and they give these out, because right now these are the only versions of these cards that you can get. And if you want to play these cards, you should not have to pay $60 for this Nami. It's not that good, but it is a 2K counter. Here's a Straw Hat. Maybe you want to cook some weird red-blue Straw Hat VV deck and you need this card play that deck. It shouldn't be $60. Bandai needs to do something about this. This is just like that whole event was very poorly designed in my opinion. I don't know what else to say. That's all I got to say about this. Hopefully these cards get given out more events, or they start doing more sealed battles or something. It says sealed battle kit volume 1 though, which has me worried, because if they do another sealed battle, it'll probably be volume 2 when there'll be different cards. But they need to give out these cards some other way, because they should not be this expensive, especially like having a leader locked behind it too. Not that it's very good, but still, it's still a problem. All right, almost at the end now. We've got our pre-release stuff, starting with set 2. About the same as where we were at last week. Ice Age is still expensive. Zoro's weirdly expensive. Makino is, it's down a lot from where it was at one point, but still not cheap. And yeah, that's about it for pre-release stuff. Don't really have any cards I really want to point out, unless maybe again Domino. We see some weird Impel Down. We could see some Impel Down support, and that card's good. Your Sphinx is still up. I haven't really seen any Impel Down Pluffy decks being messed around with too much in our Western format, but there were some in the East, as I mentioned before. Set 3 pre-release Peel Off is still way too expensive. Dolly Fuzz coming down. The Dash Pack Shirahoshi is finally more than this one. Virgo is still fairly expensive, and that's because it seems like it sees quite a bit of play in set 3. Shirley's a bit expensive, been seeing a little bit of play in Queen. Same thing for Top Knot for Plouffe, been seeing some play, getting a little bit more expensive. Other than that, nothing really worth mentioning. Aren't really any cards I foresee getting bought out or getting very expensive here anytime soon. I guess maybe these Impel Down guys could, probably from set 1 and 2, if we get some crazy Impel Down support. Set 4, Iori's expensive, but I don't even think it sees play in Yamato. Sasaki, very good 2K. Definitely worthy of being the most expensive pre-release card for the set. We're getting some more Brokework support, so I suppose there's a chance those go up in price. Don Quixote 2K could be good, I guess. Other than that, nothing really to speak of here. First anniversary tournament stamped cards are absurdly overpriced in my opinion. I think I'm going to be unloading some of these Frankie because I have 2 of them and they're selling at $40. Now, I'm curious to see if these end up getting bought out because I am going to mention this. Frankie's at $40. Okay, sure, he's playing Luffy and whatnot. Some of the other purple decks, Purple Straw Hat 2K. He's playing like Red Purple Luffy, but Uso Hachi's also a 2K. Straw Hat, it's only $10. What's up with that? Let's see if it gets bought out now. Anyways, that's it for first anniversary stuff. It's still expensive. I'd stay away from it personally. At the beginning, I cared a little bit about the stamps for max rarity. To me now, it just seems like overpriced uncommons, so kind of like don't care anymore. So finishing things off with our starter decks. Like I said, the Judge Queen's like 41. This one is 40 effectively. Okay, cool. If you need queens, go all out, baby. Get those Judge Stamp ones. Starter deck 4 stuff is absurdly overpriced. Starter deck 6. Great Eruption is $20. Hina's 13. 20, 40 plus another almost 30. Still cheaper to buy the sealed ones, I guess. You get some extra cards in there as well. Helmeppo's up a little bit in price. So for this one, it's actually cheaper to buy the deck than the singles, unless this has like $10 shipping. It does not. $63. So I guess if you need starter deck 6, probably buy the sealed versus your singles. Save yourself just a little bit of money. Starter deck 7 is now approaching kind of starter deck 4 and 6. Not to the same degree, but both Brule and Linlin are very good cards. Linlin is seeing the most play it's seen of any set thus far, so definitely something to keep in mind. This card could go up more if yellow continues to do well, but I've been rambling for an hour and 20 minutes. We're gonna wrap things up here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, if you did enjoy the video, do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. Try and upload one of these market watches every single week, so we should have one last market watch before we end out the 2023 year and move on to 2024. So I do hope you look forward to that. Again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.